Welcome to Third Floor Views, a production of Chesapeake Family Life, where we talk about health, education, and living with kids. I'm your host, Janet Jefferson. Today, we're talking about problem solving with kids displaying challenging behaviors. And joining us is Dr. Karin Jakubowski. Karin is a school principal, an international speaker, and founder of the Educational Impact Academy. With a doctorate in educational leadership and nearly 20 years of experience in education as a teacher and principal, she has created a business to help kids with challenging behaviors manage their own stress. Thank you so much, Karin, for joining us today.
You're welcome, Janet. It's a pleasure to be here.
To our viewers, if you have any questions or comments, feel free to put those in the chat section and we'll get to those as we can. Karin, let's get started. So first, I'd love for you to tell us just a little bit about your background and your journey from a teacher to a principal and now to a coach, an educational coach.
Yeah. So Janet, okay, let's go back to when I was a kid. I would line up my little stuffed animals and have a little chalkboard and I was teaching them. And at a very young age, I wanted to be a teacher. And then I went to, after finishing high school, our church had a Bible Institute that all of my friends we all went to. And so I had 2 years of that before I was thinking about what I wanted to do and apply to college for. And within those 2 years, I actually worked in a fitness club in a five-star hotel near a city where I live. And these engineers and doctors and lawyers would come in and they'd be like, "What are you going to study?" And I was like, "Oh, I'm going to be an engineer." And I would just make up stuff. I'd make up the jobs that they were in because I wanted to hear what they would say. What are the pros? What are the cons? Oh, cool. A female engineer could make a ton of money right now. Awesome. I'll do that. It was fun. I just like played with it. Well, then I actually, an opportunity came up in our private church school in a first and second grade class to help volunteer in math once a week or something like that. Like, I don't even know why or how that ever happened. And of course, I don't know. For whatever reason, I signed up. I was like, "Oh, how about I have an extra hour a week?" And one day, one of the teachers passed by, and she was like, "You have a real natural ability with kids. Like, you're really good with them." And I was like, "I am. Like, I don't know. I'm just like doing whatever it is I would do." And so, and then I had summers off where I was working, and then I ended up transitioning to the business center in the hotel. But after 8 hours a day of plugging into a computer, I was like, "Wait a second, I'm going to do this in a company for like the rest of my life. And at the end of my life, look back and go, wait, what did I even do with my life? Like for what company, for what did that do for them in the end?"
Mm.
And I would get to the point where I'd be like, "I'm going to throw this computer out the window. I am not created to sit behind a computer 8 hours a day." And so putting two things together and just like really reflecting on my life, what really I realized brought me the most joy was when I was giving and taking and giving to others and feeling that I was making a difference. And I had so many amazing teachers, influencers. It takes a village to raise a kid. Like in our
Mhm.
church community, there were so many key people that really I saw invested in me to help me become who I am, that I wanted to be that person for someone else one day. So I ended up actually teaching in our church school, which was a private school. I started teaching while I went for my master's degree in
Mm.
education. So
Mhm.
I was actually, it was the coolest thing. I was like learning and then coming right back to the classroom and trying things out. And then I had an opportunity to work in a charter school teaching fourth grade for 4 years. And those were those years I started facing some real difficulties with kids that I just couldn't get to.
Mhm.
And they couldn't do this thing we call school. And I was
Mm.
like, "What's going on? Like, why would he run into the coat closet and not come out? Why can't
Mm.
I get to why he's doing that and know what I can do to help him? Why can't the kid do a pencil paper activity, but he can create and he's imaginative?" So I'd have lunch with him weekly, and the teachers on my team would be like, "Why are you doing that?" Like, because I got to figure out how to connect. I got to figure out what makes this kid tick. We got to get it through the year.
Right, right.
So I have such a passion to really help kids. And then when I was a child study team facilitators in two elementary public schools in Delaware, again, these kids didn't have an IEP, they didn't have a 504, but gosh darn it, they had so many struggles. And
Mm.
what is the system doing to help them or the parents? And then I learned a collaborative problem solving approach about 12 years ago that really shifted everything for me. And
Mm.
it's a process that really gets to why a kid is doing what they're doing. keeps the relationship still intact between you and them, because a lot of times that gets broken when a kid does something unexpected, or they get sent to the principal's office, or they're not doing well in school for whatever reason,
Mhm.
social, emotional, mental, whatever. Um, and so as I just committed to this practice over time, I ended up started seeing success with these kids that I had gotten frustrated with and couldn't get to the answer of. And now I'm at a point where I'm like, wait a second, if I learned this, like I could teach parents this, because if I learned it, they could learn it. And so many times I hear parents like, I don't know what to do when my kid has a meltdown. I don't know what to do when they have a tantrum. My kid won't talk to me. Like, how do I get them to like talk to me? And so that's what's got me started on this kind of building a platform to really just help educate, inform, inspire, and create those possibilities where maybe things seem a little helpless and a little lost.
Yeah, definitely. Could you tell us more about this collaborative problem solving process that sort of opened the doors for you?
Yeah, so I'll take a few minutes to walk us through it. Even though if you go on my website, educationalimpactacademy.com, you can click to put your email in, and you'll get a video series that I created for free
Mm,
that walks you through it even more. So if you feel like whatever I say is like something you want to learn more about, totally go there. Then you could listen to it, watch it again, and slow it down, or take a note. But I'll break it down as simply as I can for us here today. And it starts with recognizing that you're not going to talk to your child first until you are calm and in control of your body. And it's a simple phrase that I use when a kid is kind of screaming or upset. I just will say to them, you look like you need some time to get calm and in control of your body. And I use what I teach called the elevator tone of voice. Like when you get on the elevator with someone, hey, how are you? Nice day. Like that's how I'm telling you, if you just try this one thing with your kid, try it and see if it doesn't unlock for you something of in the communication that helps, that might not have been helpful or opened up the communication previously.
uh-huh.
Because kids are used to us raising our voice. They're used to us talking with them with some sort of attitude or a slant, or out of our frustration, because that
Mhm.
happens and it's there. But if the number one thing you do is not talk to them until you're calm and in control of your body, or you have to literally put on an act, even though inside you might be like going crazy, but there's just this miracle in this tone of voice that is very empathetic. Um, and so when they are calm and in control of their body, which sometimes takes 30 minutes, an
Mhm.
hour,
Mhm.
that next act, like that afternoon in that day, um, just the biggest thing is not talking to them in the moment,
Mhm.
because when they are upset, I call it freaked out. There's all the science behind it. You flipped your lid. You actually can't think properly. I always say, like, you can't even tell somebody your name when you're anxious, freaked out, and fear. So that not talking to them till they're calm is such a huge key. Like if that's just a first step you try to challenge yourself with this
Mhm.
week, just bite off what you can handle.
Mhm.
But then when they are calm and in control of their body, using my elevator tone of voice, I'll use an example. The kid gets sent to the principal's office, and they kick the kid at recess. And this is how I talk to every kid who's in trouble when they come to in school. I notice, or I heard, you either saw it because you can say you noticed, but usually I heard because I wasn't there. I heard you kicked a kid on the playground, like, and you asked this magical question, what's up with that? And then you wait that impregnable pause that no one's comfortable with, right? And at first this process, it's why it takes just time, because it's so different than what we're used to.
Mhm.
We're used to, why did you do that? I didn't teach you that. You know better than that. We these are all just the things that we've been told, and we
Yeah.
just do because that's all we just do what we know.
Right. And it's very reactive.
Yes. Yes. And we know that the kids are mirrors of us. And so as we are elevated emotionally, don't be surprised. They're going to get elevated and
Mhm.
emotional as well. So
Mhm.
I love that picture of, okay, that kid, my kid right now is a mirror of me. So
Mhm.
if I lower my voice, eventually they're going to mirror mine.
Mhm.
But what's huge is that you can't make a kid calm down any slower or faster than they're going to calm down.
Mhm.
just can be really hard for us because we want you to calm down now so I can talk about it now, right? So it
Right.
goes against a lot of things that we are just really used to and comfortable with. But stick with me and just try it. And as you practice and try it, we're all going to fail forward, I say, because that's the only way we learn to do anything. And so I wait that impregnable pause, and it's so hard, but I'm just waiting. And 9 times out of 10, the kid just what do? They shrug their shoulders and they tell you, I don't know, because that's just what they do, right?
Right.
So then I either repeat the phrase like, I heard you, kick the kid on the playground, like, what's up with that? Or sometimes if they say I don't know, I say, if you did know, what would you say? And they
Hmm.
just look at you like you have two heads because they're like, what is she talking about? But it makes them think because really something went on at some point.
Hmm.
And it might not have been right before they kicked the kid,
Hmm.
which is
Hmm.
interesting because behind every behavior, there's a story. But if
Hmm.
we can take the time to get to the story, sometimes it's something that happened an hour before, something that's happened at home before they even got to school. Sometimes they're just hungry or they're tired or like there could be a number of things. And usually we are only dealing with what we saw in that moment, which was like, you kicked the kid and you know better and you're going to the principal's office or blah, 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 whatever it is.
Right.
So I say, if you did know, what would you say? And sometimes I add after a pause to give them time to say something if they're ready. Sometimes I'll add, there's no right or wrong answer.
Hmm.
Because I think sometimes kids think like, well, either I'm going to get in trouble if I say this, so I'm not going to tell
Right.
you that. Or, well, I probably should say that because I know what I'm going to say isn't so great. And I really, it's very disarming. It's just so non-assuming. And over time, when you practice this enough, your child will get used to and realize that it's okay to say what they're going through, which is what we want them to say
Hmm.
anyway.
Hmm.
Excuse me. But how often do we as adults even control what we say because of what someone will or won't think, right?
Right.
Excuse me. So it's so beautiful, Janet, because over time kids start opening up with what really is going on, and they're sharing with you their concern. And I'm not saying that you as the adult are not going to also share your concern, because you're going to put it on the table too.
Hmm.
So in the instant when the kid kicked the kid on the playground, sometimes it's, well, the other kids came up and they were pushing and kicking, and maybe they kicked back, right?
Hmm.
Or so then
Hmm.
you got some other investigating to do. But then you take their concern and you share yours with empathy. So you use phrases like, oh, that must have been really, sounds like it was tough for you. That empathy is a key. And I call it, empathy is the door to connection. As
Hmm.
you are empathetic, it opens up that door for them to open up to you more about what's really going on. Because if we get judgmental or criticize anything in that moment, it could shut them down. And then
Hmm.
it's their wall is up and they're guarding. And that's the opposite of what we want. We really want to know what's going on so we can really help. And then you give your concern, which for me would be like, well, at school, like, North Star Bears, we don't kick kids, that could make them feel da 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 da. So you
Right.
always put your concern on the table. And then, Janet, the beauty of this whole process is I've learned over time that it's usually only one of two things when a kid has a difficulty, issue, challenge. It's either a problem that needs to be solved or a skill they need to be taught.
Hmm.
And a lot of times I see us making the assumption that, well, my kid knows that. They know better. They might, but let's take the assumption that we need to teach them rote again.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's either the skill that we need to take time to teach them to maneuver in that situation, whatever it is, there could be like 100 million different things, or the problem to be solved. And a lot of times at school, it tends to be a problem to be solved.
Hmm.
So, that happened on the playground. So what do you think we could do to solve this problem? And I really, this builds the problem solving skills in kids, which is a lifelong skill. We want to
Right.
raise kids and build kids who can problem solve. And Janet, so many kids these days are so used to us telling them what to do that when you say, what could we do to solve this problem, they don't even know,
Hmm.
because I don't think we give kids enough opportunities to solve problems.
Hmm.
There's a lot that we tell them they should and shouldn't be doing. So this process, and then of course they look at you again, shrug their shoulders and say, I don't know, because they're just not used to it. But over time, when you do this, you're building that skill in them. And then because the whole goal is actually for them to come up with a solution. Well,
Mhm.
maybe I could try this. Well, do you think you could try that next time? Okay, why don't we give that a try? I mean, ideally, they want you to come up with three, which to me is so many. Like, I'm
Mhm.
great if I had the kid and I come up with one or two,
Right.
and really let, like, they might come up with like the most cockamamie idea, but if you're okay to
Right.
try it, like, be open, be curious. And I found a lot of times we hear something a kid says could be a solution, we're like, well, that won't work. Well, that has nothing to do with what. And you got to like delete all that. And as long
Mhm.
as you're okay
Mhm.
with it, I'm not saying a parent or an adult or an educator should do something that the kid says that they think should solve the problem that you're not okay with. That's not what we're saying, and that's not going to fly, because you compromise, but it has to be a choice that you're okay with them doing. Like, one kid in class one time was like running around, the teacher's like, he doesn't sit down, and I'm trying to teach my small group, and he's just causing problems and getting in everyone's business. So I sat with the kid one day and I was like, I heard that, you're kind of like not really doing what you're supposed to be doing during center
Mhm.
time. What's up with that? Well, it's too loud in the room, and I just can't focus, whatever he said. So when we got to, what do you think we should do to solve this problem? He goes, well, maybe I could wear headphones. Well, when I told the teacher, she's like, that won't work. That's not the problem. But
Mhm.
I have to help people to be like, okay, you and I might think it's not the problem, and you might think we know what it is. But if this kid thinks that's the solution,
Right.
just try it. What is
Right.
it going to do to hurt us? So you
Right.
try it. If it doesn't work and it wasn't the solution, then you come back to the table with the kid and be like,
Right.
well, we tried that, but like, I'm still having some issues. Like, what do you think about that? Like, you think there's something else we could try? And you keep coming back to trying different things, which is building that problem solving skill, which is incredible for
Right.
kids to learn right now. So I know I said a whole lot, so better pause
No,
there.
no, it's great. I see that the problem solving gives a lot of ownership to the student, to the child, where I think it allows them to feel empowered, where often, like, whether it be an adult or a child, like, you feel like these problems are just raining down on you, have no control. So if this is like, okay, here's a process that I have control over, that then I can try things out, and I have the power to do something about it. And I think that that is such a powerful thing, whether it be for a child or an adult. It's like, okay, I can make things better.
Yeah.
So I can see how it's a really positive thing. But what I'm hearing from you at the very beginning, the most important thing is to come at a child who's displaying challenging behaviors with that sort of calm, neutral voice. So you called it an elevator voice, which I love. I think that's such a great, like, grown-ups can really be like, oh yeah, I know what that means. And make sure that the child is also in a place where they can be ready to receive and have a conversation with an open mind. Because you're right, when you're upset, there's no way anything productive will happen. So making sure you give that wait time, and then you create that safe space. Um, I know that one thing you talked very briefly about, but something that you've mentioned sort of in your work, is the power of connection and relationship building. So I was wondering if you could talk to us just a little bit more about that sort of step or stage. And I know that one of the phrases that you use sometimes is connect before you correct. And if you could tell us just a little bit about that process.
Yeah, so I'll take you back to a story that when I was an assistant principal and I get all the behavior referrals in the school. So that's like what I did day in and day out, which actually was quite exhausting for me. Like, I have more fun connecting and doing things with kids than dealing with the behaviors. But this collaborative problem solving approach really helped me through those years that were really tough for me, because yeah, anyway, it's just not, wasn't easy for me. But what I ended up doing was, every kid that got written up in the school for bad behaviors, the high flyers, I started having lunch with each of them once a week, Janet. And they could bring one friend. And the simple game of Uno works with kindergarten through fifth graders. It's like the miracle game. And it's like the littlest thing. It's just a deck of cards, right? So we would eat lunch together and play Uno, and we'd laugh. And I'm a kid at heart, so I'm very like young-hearted. And so I just laugh with them, and I'm just like a kid with them. And to see them smile and laugh and not be in the office because they're in trouble. And it is what it is. But at times a teacher might say, you're rewarding them. They don't
Mhm.
they don't deserve that. They shouldn't be getting that, right? This thought. And I was like, it's an intervention.
Mhm.
So I just created that saying because, and the whole reason why I started that was because I needed a positive connection with them so that when I had to correct them, I had earned their trust and they would listen to me, right?
Mhm.
Because either I'm just going to be known as a disciplinarian that everyone's going to, well, I'm a very unique, different disciplinary because over time kids realize they don't have to be afraid of me because of the process I just explained that I did with you. Not saying you're not going to get your consequence because you do, uh, right? Because that's there. But to have this whole process done. And okay, so Janet, I wasn't a good kid when I was growing up. Okay. I lied, I stole, I cheated. I know what it's like to feel bad and feel like the bad person. And I think that's
Mm.
why I gravitate towards this so much because I kind of have a heart for the underdog because I was that at times.
Mhm.
But I wasn't always treated in this way. And I wish I had. And I think this is the way every human should be treated, even in those most challenging moments. So I think that's why I have such a passion for this because I know what it's like being in that kid's shoes in trouble. But so going back to the connection, it was so powerful to realize connection before correction
Mhm.
because I had built that trust and I recognized it might have been the only fun time they had that week because they were kids who had difficulty just doing school. And so sometimes they just get in trouble a lot and then they just feel like that's how they're treated or they're always in trouble or,
Mhm.
they get this whole persona about it. And it was funny because my principal at the time ended up creating this picture with Uno cards in it. And it was like Dr. J changes kids' lives one child at a time or one Uno game at a time or whatever. And she had all those kids sign it and it still
Oh.
sits in my office. And that is why I do what I do. Like getting in trouble and doing things wrong is a part of life. And I think sometimes we forget kids aren't robots and
Mm.
we can feel so ashamed, like, oh my God, my kid did that. I've called parents and I will have the kid tell the parent what they did wrong because I'm not telling them I didn't do it. And a lot of times the parent's like, I don't think my kid did that. And I'm like,
Mm.
so can you tell your mom like what happened? And they say it, and the mom's like, I can't believe this, and yeah, we all don't want to believe our kid would do this, that, or the other, but they are human and this is part of growing up and learning. So parents, if you can just take a deep breath. I know we take it so personally when our kids act inappropriately, but just let it go and try this process out and it might help you and make you feel better too. But you're not alone because and that's just why I'm here to give
Mhm.
parents support and encouragement and know that hey, here's something that can help because I had a parent whose kid did something so bad in school, she didn't even show up for parent teacher night because she was so embarrassed. And I'm
Aw.
like, it doesn't have to be that way,
Right. Right.
So, and if I can help in any way, that's why I've kind of stepped out into this area.
Right, right. We're a team. We're here together to support the children and make sure that they're moving in the right direction. And that team consists the of not only the teacher and the administration and the parents, but then the child themselves too. And I think that's what you were saying before is involve them in the problem solving process and you're going to get a much better outcome. Like the kid is the head of the team. And that makes so much sense. Just to pivot a little bit in our conversation, you have been in the sort of education realm for a really long time at this point, and you have sort of been in different perspective within the system. Are you seeing more students struggling today than you were maybe 10 or 15 years ago? And why do you think that is?
So, Janet, I would say so. I've been an administrator, assistant principal to principal for 10 years. And I would say probably 5 or 6 years ago, every year I was saying to my educational diagnostician, my school psychologist, my school guidance counselor, what is going on? Because the
Mm.
mental health needs of our kids is just rising, rising, rising. And we're not getting any supports in the school to help support that. Pre-COVID, Janet,
Mm.
this was going up. The school year before COVID hit, we ended up bringing in a mindfulness coach that we heard was in a neighboring school doing mindfulness lessons for kids. So my school counselor heard about it. Her kid was in that school. She's like, we've got to get them in. We put some money together, got a grant, piloted them in the first grade class. Even the teachers were like, what are we doing, Karin? Like, really? And I'm like, you're not even doing anything. You're just in the room watching,
Right,
participating,
right.
like just go with the flow
No
for
big
now.
deal.
Do you know that after it was like 6 or 8 weeks of these lessons, one of those first grade teachers literally came to me and was like, Karin, this is amazing. I'm using it for myself and I'm using it with my kids at home. Like,
Mm,
this is incredible. We have to bring this to all the kids at school. Um, so next year, our building leadership team decided to allocate part of our budget. We brought her into all the kids. Um, and I want to say that was the year that COVID hit. It was either that year or no, wait, I think it was that year. Well, she did it for K-5, but she
mhm.
only did a survey for grades 2 through 5. Janet, at the end of these 8 weeks, these second through fifth graders, 40% of them said they were sleeping better at night.
Whoa.
A high percent of them said this should be taught to other kids, that it helped them feel more calm in school, helped them taking tests. All of a sudden I was like, wait, I've been waiting for the state to come in and do something more. This is like a proactive approach, almost like a therapy for kids, to help give them strategies when they hit things that they're facing that are difficult at home, in school, the emotional and stress, mental health, the needs of the kids. So to me, it was like this was the answer that I was waiting for. And it had happened so organically that I ended up taking 2 of the classes through Mindful Schools, learning the lessons. One of my fifth graders who struggled behaviorally, but was kind of a genius and good at tech, helped me start a YouTube channel, Mindfulness with Dr. J, to throw these little videos that he would take videos of so we could show parents what we were doing. Because
Oh, that's
this
fantastic.
buzzword of mindfulness is like, oh yeah, ooh, but nobody really knew exactly what we
Hmm.
were doing. And so yeah, that's kind of how, yes, the mental health needs of kids was rising before COVID. And then when COVID hit and we went home, I
Mhm.
ended up creating mindfulness videos with like announcements weekly and sending them to families. And kids would be like, when we finally did come back to school the last school year, kids would be like, I saw you on the video. Oh, when are you going to do a mindfulness lesson with us? I mean, parents were contacting, say, my kids coming home telling me like this breathing little activity they use.
Mm.
Like, you can't even get a kid to tell you what they learned in school that day. And kids were volunteering this. Like, I was like,
Right.
there is something here. And so that has been another thing that I've just committed myself to, because I can't go back, not after what I
Huh.
saw of what that did to help kids.
That sounds incredible. I mean, it sounds like another sort of big door opening in terms of the direction that you've been moving in. Um, so my last question is, we've talked about a lot of different things, but what are maybe some specific things that parents can do at home to support their kids, both when the student or the kid is at home, but then also when they're away at school? So what are maybe some tips that you would have for parents, or what if you had a moment to pull some parents aside and be like, okay, if only you could do this, that would be amazing. What would you recommend?
So I'm going to teach you 2 different breathing techniques that I will encourage parents to try and practice, because when I've taught, we teach this to the kids. And when we've taught it to parents, parents have started using this to the point where in the fall, I run a live 6-week course with parents virtually. The parent shared that the kid did something and the parent realized they need a minute before they could like figure out what to do or how to address it. They just went right into their dining room. They sat down and they did this breathing activity. They said their kid came around the corner, saw them, turned right around and went back. Like, the kid recognized the mother needed a moment because they had learned it, she had learned it, and they saw her using it. And that was just so powerful. So I'm just going to leave you with
Mm,
this to try,
mhm.
because you and I both know we all need a moment. I mean, gosh darn it. Teacher was talking to me and I was getting a little bit upset. And I came back to my office and I did this little breath activity I'm going to teach you right now. And my secretary walked in and I'm like, I just need a minute. Like, I use it. Like, it
Right,
helps
right.
me get back to my centered self of calm. So one of them is a finger breath, where you just put your 5 fingers out in front of you and you start with the pointer finger of your other hand. You start at the bottom. And as you go up to the top of your thumb, you breathe in. And as you go down, you breathe out. And as you go to the next top of your finger, you breathe in and then you breathe out. You go all the way down to your pinky. And this is my favorite because it forces me to take 5 breaths.
Mm,
The
mhm.
other one that kids love is you put your fingertips together, kind of like creating a ball that's inside. And as you breathe in, you just expand both of your hands outward. And as you breathe out, you just bring them back together. And I give kids the choice, because the choice for kids helps them feel like they have power, like you were talking about earlier, ownership. So when a kid gets upset, and sometimes I need to talk to them, and I've started doing this where I'm like, because we've taught it to them, do you want to do a ball breath or a finger breath? Do
Mhm,
you want to do 4 or 5 breaths? So I'm giving them
mhm.
choices that I'm okay with, and they feel like they get to own it. And then we do our breaths. And then sometimes that's enough time for them to get calm and in control of their body. And then I go into, sounds like you ripped your paper in class. Like, what's up with that? And we go through our process.
Yep, absolutely. Um, we call that the red pajamas, blue pajamas in my house. Like, you're wearing pajamas tonight. Would you like the red pajamas or the blue pajamas? So the power of choice is
Yes.
incredible. Like, you're doing this breathing exercises, but you get to choose what you want to do. So I think that's true again with adults and children, but the power of choice is really fantastic. Those breaths are incredible though, because they are so tactile. And I really appreciate that, especially when a student or a child is having a really hard time calming down. There's something about incorporating sort of as many senses as possible, but especially when you're really upset, the touch and the tactile nature of that, I think, is incredibly powerful, and it can really provide some centering when you're just, as you said, you blew your lid, or you're really struggling, you're really upset. So that's really helpful. And I love what you said about the child coming in and seeing their mother taking the
Yeah.
breaths, and
I
it's
was like,
creating space for the whole family, and that realization that, oh, my my mother's a person too, and it's just incredible. I think that is a really, really big deal. That's such a moment where it's like, oh my gosh, it's working.
yes.
That's really, really cool. That's a fantastic story.
And well, because I guess that mom was in my training, she got to the point where she could say to her kid, it looks like you and I both just need a moment. And they could both actually recognize that. I mean, that he was like a second grader, so it depends what age your child is. But if you create this to be so commonplace, wow,
Yeah.
wow, this is so huge. Just
Yeah.
having these tools.
Definitely.
Yeah,
Well, thank you so much,
you're so
Dr. Karin Jakubowski. And thank you also to all of our viewers and listeners today. Make sure that you do visit ChesapeakeFamily.com for local up-to-date information on home, health, and living for today's Maryland parent. This episode will be archived on ChesapeakeFamily.com in both video and podcast format. I'm Janet Jefferson with Chesapeake Family Life and Third Floor Views. Thank you so much.